being curious, being hardworking, being honest, and being very ambitious. So I got a job at HBO in talent acquisition, as you mentioned. And if you have not tried it yourself, how can you be 100% certain that this is not for you? That the time is now. If you want to try something, there will never be a better time to do something. Oh my God, like someone wants what I created. Like I can see a good response. Or like someone leaves a review, like that's a great sign. A major media publication wrote about you, like that's phenomenal. So you celebrate, you high five, you know, like you do a happy dance. But then there are moments that really put a lot of pressure on you. It's really about trying different things, seeing what works and what doesn't. And as an entrepreneur, you need to think quickly. Maybe you don't have enough budget to test something out for a year. But honestly, you don't have time because like things are happening quickly. Like even getting a tiny placement in a small newspaper, like in a small magazine, that's a lot of work too. Like yes, you will sacrifice your time, but it's very rewarding, and then you see the results and you see something tangible, but like also you learn so much. But the world of PR and social media, it's very similar. It's shifting literally by the minute. So let's say if I were to write a book on PR today, in a year it will be obsolete. If you have an idea, you need to just go ahead and pursue it.
Hi, this is the She Did It show, and I'm your host, Daria Mutrova. Today, I'm so happy to present you our guest, Maria Karr. Maria, she's the founder of Russian beauty commerce platform Rumo Beauty and PR expert. Maria led PR and communications for Amore Pacific, the world's leading Korean beauty brand. And actually, she was one of those people who made K-beauty a thing. And also, she managed PR and communication efforts for such brands as Laneige, Innisfree, Mammont, and many other brands. She taught her PR and communication signature course at Baruch College, the City University of New York. And today, she is the founder of Rumo Beauty and her own PR agency, Hillcrest Communications, where she's helping to emerging brands to find their awareness in a PR world. And her business and her clients recently have been featured in Allure, in CNN, Forbes, Condé Nast Traveler, InStyle, and many other top media outlets. I'm so excited to see you today, Maria, in our studio. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me, Daria. It's such a pleasure to see you and to have this conversation.
Oh yeah, I'm so happy too. And actually, before we dive more deep to your entrepreneurship journey and to the PR world, I would love to talk with you about your background. I know that you came from the Siberian city of Barnaul. Yes. Tell us how your story in New York City in the US started.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I am originally from Barnaul. That's right in the middle of Siberia. If you look at the map of Russia, you'll see it right in the middle of it. And when I say that I'm from Siberia, people are like, oh my God, like, is it snowing? Is it always cold? I'm like, no, you know, it's a beautiful town, about 600,000 people. And I mean, I miss it from time to time, but I really love my life here in New York. I've been living in New York for the past 15 years.
15?
Yes, I came in 2007. I didn't know anyone. That was actually my first trip abroad. So I started from scratch, but you know, it's been a great journey and I'm excited for what's to come next.
Yeah, how your approach to life changed when you just came here to New York City and lately when you lived here for such a long period, actually 15 years.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to judge just because, you know, you don't see yourself from the side in a way. But I mean, obviously I've grown personally, professionally. Like as I mentioned, like I came here, I was a student. So I was very eager to study. I was very eager not to just like study a profession or some trade, but I was also very curious about the culture, about the language, about all of the all of the possibilities that the US has been promising to offer, because like it's like the land of opportunity, the land of possibility. So I've been always very curious to see what it may mean, and I know that for every person it's very different, and it may mean a variety of different things. So for me, I went to college, and later on I graduated and I started my professional career. And I switched my career a couple of times, and I feel like life is evolving and life is changing. But what I have always been, and I'm planning to kind of be the same, but like being curious, being hardworking, being honest, and being very ambitious. Because I feel like if you put a lot of effort into that, and if you really try and have a dream and you have goals and then you go towards them, a lot of things are possible.
Yeah, that's true. And speaking more deeply about your educational background already here, you've been studying in Kingsborough College.
So I started at Kingsborough, but then I transferred to Baruch College.
You transferred to Baruch
I
College?
did, yeah. So I graduated with a bachelor's degree from Baruch College.
Okay.
And then I also studied for a bit at NYU, New York University, because I wanted to get some more hands-on skills and some practical skills in PR and communications, and NYU had a wonderful program. So although my bachelor's degree is also in the related field, it's in communications, but I really wanted to take it to the next level, and I took those courses at NYU.
Yeah, and actually, as I know, after you graduated, you pursued your first career steps in HBO, and you've been responsible for talent acquisitions, and you still decided to go to PR and to the beauty. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I guess the shorter answer to that would be that, I've been pursuing a degree in communications while at Baruch, and communications can mean 1,000 different things. Communications could be internal communications like human resources. It could be communications like PR. It could be advertising. It could be marketing. There are so many areas to what communication may mean. And I've been a believer back then, and I still am, that you should not limit your possibilities. I didn't really want to narrow my major down a lot because I wanted to have my options open. As an immigrant who did not have much connections, who did not have a lot of corporate experience prior to this, I really wanted to keep my options open so that, if there is an opportunity, I could take it on and try it out and then see whether it's something that I would enjoy. So when I was still in college, I was very fortunate to get an internship at Warner Music Group, which is one of the largest music publishing companies. And it was in human resources. So I really loved it. It was also in talent acquisition. I was actually recruiting interns for the next semester for the whole company, and I had a great time speaking with all of the candidates, just getting to know the functions of all different departments, what they do, what kind of candidates they may be looking for, etc. So I was, I really enjoyed the job, and then when I graduated, I wanted to evolve in that area. So I got a job at HBO in talent acquisition, as you mentioned. And my experience has been nothing short of wonderful. I learned so much. I met incredible people. It also helped me boost up my confidence a lot because, when you're coming to a new country, you don't know much. You don't know how things are. You don't know what the inside of the corporate world may look like. You don't the interview culture, the corporate culture is just so different. Yeah, in the US. So I was very fortunate to have this opportunity to learn from the best. Meet wonderful people, get a lot of experience. But then as I've been progressing in my career at HBO, I started to realize that I wanted something that was a bit more closely related to PR because I used to, and I still like to write. I like to have some creativity. I really love the events aspect. I really love media relations. So I really I wanted to test it out, and I wanted to see what it may look like for me. Because again, I'm a strong believer that you don't know unless you try. You may hear different things, you may read it in the books, you may hear it from friends or family, whoever.
So true.
But you are you, right? And if you have not tried it yourself, how can you be 100% certain that this is not for you, or if this is for you?
Yeah.
So I decided to take a step back, and I decided to take a deep dive into PR. I found an opportunity with Film Society of Lincoln Center to handle their red carpets and PR around the New York Film Festival, which was an incredible opportunity. And then while I was there, I was still looking for, like a PR agency type of a job. So I landed at the boutique PR firm here in New York City about 10 years ago. And that's where my PR journey has officially started.
And how do you feel your education helped you really to proceed in this PR path? Do you feel like some people say that the university degree in America is super important if you want to succeed here, because some people say it gives you so many connections, or maybe like case by case studies, right, or maybe theory. What it was for you? How was that important? Or you felt like it's your passion and whatever it takes, I will just go and do it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because I feel like also education can bring different things to each person. So for some people it could be connections, for some people it could be some hands-on skills. I feel like in my case it gave me a very nice overview of what communications could be about. I met incredible classmates who were all very ambitious and they're very successful now, at least those who I keep in touch with. I met wonderful professors who had a wealth of knowledge in their respective disciplines. But like what college gives you, it's really not the practical skills. It's really more about the general idea, and it gives you the skill of how to find information, of how to like get to the bottom of something, how to research something, because you will never have answers to everything, but then college gives you that opportunity to learn how to extract those answers and where to look for them, and how to think critically, and how to really think outside of the box, and just like really shape your career. Was my college education a manual for my next job? No, it was not, and I don't feel like any college is like that, but it really gives you that resource and that skill of how to set yourself up for success down the road. So then when I graduated with my degree, I wanted to advance my skills in PR, I decided to take courses at NYU, because they were not, like your formal degree, but then it was a very hands-on practical course where I could learn the ropes of being a public relations professional. So I could actually get to know how to write a very nice press release, or what a fact sheet is, or how to get media's attention. So it was, I feel like that the combination of my formal education at Baruch and then the PR courses at NYU, that's what helped me a lot in becoming the publicist I am today.
So NYU gave you more practical skills, how to write the pitch, how to
do
those formal things, which you didn't get there. That's amazing. Yeah, and then with your practically you went to work with so many companies lately, you shaped this. And
and practice makes it perfect, especially in PR. So, if you were to go back 10 years ago, the landscape was absolutely different compared to what it is today. Instagram was just starting to emerge. It was not even a thing. The word influencer did not exist. So now whenever we develop
celebrities, right?
Like celebrities are different, but like also the means of communicating with the audience, the needs of the audiences are different, like the way they consume content, right? People are no longer reading print magazines as much. They're not watching traditional TV as much, but people are on their digital devices. They are listening to podcasts. They're following influencers on social media. So, the tools, the idea of bringing more awareness to your clients, it has stayed the same, right? Like the larger purpose of a job of a PR professional, let's say the same. But the tools of getting there.
Yeah, we'll speak about
all right.
later. For sure. Yeah, I would love to jump to your entrepreneurship journey, because you've been working in the corporate world and in PR agencies. And actually, you had a successful career. You've been leading PR and communications for the world's leading Korean beauty brand. And you've been one of those people, right, who made Korean beauty products so popular. And why did you decide to switch being entrepreneur? How that happened?
Well, I have to say that I love my job. It was a very big decision to just pack my bags, like pack my desk and leave. But I did feel, I feel like COVID and some personal situations made me realize that the time is now. If you want to try something, there will never be a better time to do something. There will never be another moment or like another opportunity. If you have an idea, you need to just go ahead and pursue it.
Yeah, and your idea was to create Baruch Beauty company, which is e-commerce beauty platform for Russian brands, which are not existing, which have not existed before in the American market.
Yeah. So I went to Moscow in 2019, for a personal trip. Actually, I went there to run a Moscow marathon. And being a beauty professional, I wanted to stop by a few stores and just see what's going on in that market, because I've seen so many beauty products from around the world during my career, and I haven't seen much coming from my home country. So I wanted to explore, and then when I saw all of those brands that I've never heard of before, that I've never seen in the US, I was like, wait a second, why no one has talked about them just yet? And I really thought I might have missed it. So when I came back to the US, I started to look further and started to dig deeper, and I realized that they were just not present. And I really wanted to change that, because we know so much about beauty from Asian countries. We know so much about European beauty. We know about beauty brands from South America, but we don't know much about Russian beauty at all. So,
that's true,
and that's how the idea came to be. And born and raised in Russia, it was in my roots. It was part of my upbringing. I remember, within a family, we've had all of these beauty concoctions and all of these natural beauty recipes.
Yeah, it's actually when someone just go outside to the garden and pick up something and then just
herbs
end up
and
with some
fruits.
Beautiful mask.
Exactly.
A strawberry or so many interesting products.
Exactly, and venturing out into the forest and sourcing some herbs and some botanical, it was a whole new world that was not known to the consumers here. So I really wanted to change that. So that's how that's how the idea came to be, and I wanted to bring those products. I wanted to bring Russian beauty innovation to the consumers who loved beauty, who were looking for something else that hasn't been available before.
Yeah, and actually you've been having a background in PR, which probably helped you with your own brand. But did you face any challenges during this entrepreneurship journey? What type of challenges did you face? I'm sure
lots of challenges. I have to be honest here. I feel like the role of entrepreneur has been so glamorized in media. I feel like people look at, I don't know, 30 under 30 lists, or they see entrepreneurs who live a very lavish life. They're traveling, and then they're, I don't know, having those Instagrammable moments. But what happens behind the scenes, not so many people talk about that. And there is a lot that's happening behind the scenes, and it's not necessarily glamorous. So
yeah, that's why we actually want to talk about
exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Support someone.
Yeah, I guess, it's, especially for me, coming from a corporate background, it's been a total, mindset shift. So, I used to work with a team, and then every team member was responsible for different areas. So, for example, I had expertise in PR, but then I had colleagues who would be experts in marketing or experts in digital or social. But then when you run your own company, you are kind of the expert in everything, or you have to be. You have to learn.
At the first stage, at least. Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
You have to learn everything. And, some things may come to you naturally, but others may not. And there is never enough, because it's your business, it's your baby. You really want to invest everything that you can, from a time perspective, from an effort perspective. And it's when is it going to be enough? You know, like you find yourself
There'll
working.
be lots of surprises.
Exactly. And it's like also, you know, some things may not be working as planned. Like some of the timelines may be falling through because, you know, like when you're working for a large company, there are processes at place and there are protocols and then, you know.
Quarters, right? You plan everything like in a half year in advance, maybe in a company.
Yes, and you have teams of professionals who have been doing their entire lives to support and to chime in with their expertise and deliver on time. But here, you know, like also you have the budget, right? It's
a big part. It's awesome if you do that, if you had some budget to start.
Exactly. So I started with my own money, so I didn't have a lot. So I also had to be not only everything at once, but also I had to deliver everything on a budget, on a very tight budget.
That's a goal.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, there were like the life of an entrepreneur has a lot of ups and downs. And I mean, like whenever there is a sale that happens, right? Like you, like, oh my God, like someone wants what I created. Like I can see a good response, or like someone leaves a review. Like that's a great sign. Or I don't know, like a major media publication wrote about you. Like that's phenomenal. So you celebrate, you high five, you know, like you do a happy dance. But then there are moments that really put a lot of pressure on you. Like let's say something is not working or something was supposed to be delivered at that time, and then you work with someone who is located abroad and it's already nighttime and you cannot access them and you cannot fix it yourself. So, you know, in like certain things, it just, let's say there is a new platform that you would like to explore, but you don't know how, or you don't have time, or you simply cannot wrap your head around that. And at the end of the day, your decision is the final call. You know, like in a corporate setting, you have kind of like a system of checks and balances. Like no matter how high up you are, you have a lot of peers.
Keep your eyes.
But like also you have a lot of peers who you can reach out for advice. You have your supervisor, you have people on the team to just like bounce ideas off each other and keep things going. But when you are on your own, that's it.
Your own team, right?
You are your own team, and so I found it challenging because I used to be working within a larger group. Whether it was in my recent job or whether it was on the PR agency side, there is always a group of people around me. And here, you know, it was just me, myself, and I. But you know what?
But you nailed it. You did it. Well, it's amazing, Brent. I just want to mention that Rumor Beauty was published in Vogue, in so many magazines, Allure, right? Some Glamour, Marie Karr. And it's amazing cosmetics. You just delivered a great product to the US, which is amazing.
Thank you.
What is to be female founder in the US? Did you feel, I don't know, any specifics, like how the community, maybe here's some women empowerment community of other entrepreneurs, and you could support each other? Because I think it's so important for entrepreneur, as soon as you don't have a big team, to have a like-minded people around you who go through the same struggles. Did you have that, or any type of, like maybe online communities to help you?
Yeah, so I mean, back to your the first part of your question, how is it to be a female entrepreneur in the US? I think beauty industry is a bit different compared to, let's say, finance or tech, which are predominantly male. In the beauty industry, you have a lot of women, and you know, usually it's a very nice community where people support each other. So you know, I've been reconnecting with my former colleagues, with friends within the industry, and many of them turned out to be very supportive, whether it's, you know, like with like making a purchase on the platform, or just like offering advice or helping me figure something out. So it's been very helpful. And then speaking of creating new communities, I actually found lots of new friends who started off as, let's say, Instagram connections or LinkedIn connections.
Okay.
Let's say there would be a post of a very big known figure, and then I would comment something, and then I see that someone like my comment, and I check their profile, and they're a fellow entrepreneur somewhere in the West Coast, and I really love their product and see like they're doing cool things, and then we hit it off, and
so you connected, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then now, a few months down the road, like we are friends, we are like chatting, we are exchanging some ideas and information. So yeah, it's been interesting, and I do feel like of course there has been a lot of narrative, both positive and negative, around social media, but I do feel like with social media it does help connecting and just having that accessibility, because if not for platforms like LinkedIn or Instagram, we would never reach each other. We would never know that we existed.
Actually, we met with you for Instagram.
We did, yes.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was a blessing. I was so happy. I don't remember who each other reached each other first, but it ended up amazing.
It worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Would you advise anything to the person who would love to launch the beauty brand in the US, who is thinking maybe to do that, to go to this path? Would you have some piece of advice?
Yes, I think if you have this idea, you should just go for it. And as I said before, it's never going to be a good moment. You're never going to have enough money. You're never going to have enough time. So the moment is right now, because who knows? Like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Who knows what's going to happen in a month, right? Like, the world is changing. I mean, we went through COVID. We went through so much over the past couple of years. And it's, the time is now, seriously. But of course, don't invest everything that you have without thinking things through, don't jump into it without, looking a bit further into what your competitor landscape looks like, about what the industry looks like. Will there be a demand for your product? Have some conversations. There is a very nice network that I would recommend joining for anyone who wants to start a beauty brand or a beauty company. It's called CEW, Cosmetic Executive Women. So there is a mentorship program, or at least there used to be last year, and there are experts from all areas.
Wow.
And you can actually schedule one-on-one for 30 minutes or an hour, and really have and you can pick their brain and see, let's say an expert in digital marketing or an expert in distribution or whatever else it may be that you have questions about. So you can actually pick their brain and connect with people who are in the industry, who have spent many, many years in the industry, and who can help you out.
Wow, that's awesome advice. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know about this community, but definitely.
Yeah, it's a membership-based organization, and it's
maybe I will put some link later too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for this advice. Yeah, and jump into your PR journey, because after the Rumor Beauty, you decided to start your own PR agency, Hillcrest Communications, where you help to emerging brands, to startups, to find the awareness in the communications and the connections. Could you tell more about that, how you do that, and maybe some tools which you use to help those brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So it happened almost by chance, I would say, because PR has been my background for a very long time. So I've been doing PR for more than 10 years, mostly working with beauty, wellness, and lifestyle brands. And then when I started Rumor, I didn't really want to let the PR piece go completely out of my life, because I've been doing it for so long, it's become my second nature. And I've also been approached by so many brands over the past year, and they've been asking for advice, and they've been asking for some help. And I'm like, sure, you want a consultation? Absolutely, more than happy to help you. And then I've been thinking more and more about it. I'm like, well, there is so much demand, and what I realized that people sometimes, when they're starting a company, or when they're ready to grow their company, they may not have the knowledge, or they may not have the skills to help facilitate that growth from PR and communications perspective. And I thought, well, I have this knowledge, I have this expertise, so why not? I can help these people, and I can help their brands become successful through getting coverage, through raising their awareness efforts. And I mean, I honestly never had a plan of starting my own agency, but here we are. So
wow, my congratulations. So
thank you.
Yeah, you're founder of 2 companies now.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you're growing, and it's awesome. You're helping so many brands. What would you consider any PR tool to some emerging artist or to the creative entrepreneur who has a limited budget and he's just starting out? What would you advise to start with, maybe?
Yeah, so there is this belief overall in business that PR is something insurmountable and expensive, and it's just something big and no one understands what it is. But in fact, you can do PR on a budget, or you can even start doing something yourself. Of course, there are certain things to keep in mind, and one of the things is really thinking who your target audience is. And then for your specific brand, because every brand will be different. So then once you figure out what your audience is, you have to start thinking about what magazines or what publications, or how does this audience consume information? Where do they get their news from? Do they get their news from Twitter? Do they get their news from, I don't know, CNN? Do they get their news from Vogue magazine? Like what are they reading? And then once you figure that out, you can start looking through these publications and trying to understand how your brand can fit into those articles, how your brand can fit into those shows, into the news cycle, or what news do you have to offer. And then you can start narrowing down the lists of people who write these stories, and then you can start your outreach. It's a very long and tedious process for someone who may not have been exposed to PR before, but if you're looking for a way to start and you don't have the budget, anything counts, right? Even if you reach out to one person a day, that's better than nothing. And then eventually you may develop something that's bigger. But also I feel like PR doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in Allure and in Vogue and all of these big names. You can start with your own channels. You can start with becoming a thought leader on LinkedIn. You can be, you can position yourself as an expert or opinion leader on Instagram or other social media platforms. You can start a blog or a website that will provide you a unique point of view and then help you boost your SEO and boost your expertise, showcase your expertise in the area. So again, it doesn't have to be big names. It could start small, and then as you grow, you can always add things to that list. But also, there are all of these emerging and new ways of doing PR, for example, podcasts, even some new social media networks. So, I mean, there are so many options, but I think it really starts with the audience and what type of information and how they would like to consume that information.
Supporting women in business, and happy to present you the brand Aromazeia essential oils from Indian essential oils capital, the town of Barnaul in the Indian region of Uttar Pradesh. I love the Ayurvedic effect of essential oils to my health, both physical and mental wellness. And as an entrepreneur myself, I try to create and cultivate positive self-care habits and to find me time when I just can sit and relax. Essential oils is an important complement to my wellness routine. I try to incorporate them to my yoga, to my meditation, beauty routine in the morning, and of course massages. They help me to manage stress, anxiety, to sleep well and wake up rested and ready to my day. Essential oils that I found very beneficial. Of course, there are my favorites, lavender, lemongrass, and many others. I find it's much better than big manufacturers' essential oil brands, which I found in some big stores and online. So it's available on Amazon in the US, and yeah, try that.
If we speak about not traditional ways like as media outlets or influence marketing, what are other tools, emerging tools which just came up, something new which people could consider working on their PR presence?
Yeah, I think it also depends on the product and what kind of brand you have. Like, for example, for brands that have physical presence, right, like something that we can touch, it's always important to send it out to people so that they can try. It's an investment, right, because you have to produce some product and you have to, you know, ship it and package it beautifully. But then eventually, you know, if people don't try your product, it's very hard for them to consider it for something because they need to get excited about it. They need to feel it. They need to see how it's working for them. So once they give it a shot, then you have better chances of being published somewhere. So like that could be one of the ways to also explore. I mean, there are so many different ways, like, you know, maybe start a show on social media, start a podcast. Like,
it's actually, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the podcasts and like YouTube channel, right? It's such a new way to develop your brand and to bring awareness to your brand. For example, you're doing like some podcasts as entrepreneur, right? And you bring people.
Exactly, yeah. And
who could potentially buy your products. And it's additional.
Yeah, and then these people, they repost you, and then like their audience gets engaged. And, you know, also another idea is to develop some brand partnerships and collaborations. Like, for example, if you are a hair care brand,
cross-marketing.
You can like, I don't know, partner with a brand that has headbands. Right, so like, for example, you do shampoo, they do headbands, or like they do hats. They go hand in hand, they're non-competitive, and then you can do something. It can start small. Maybe it's like a small cross-promotion on Instagram, or maybe there is a newsletter, maybe there is a virtual bundle that you can create and sell. I think it's really all about like thinking outside of the box. And again, like, you don't have to be in those, like in Forbes, in Allure. Like, I mean, it's great to have, but you don't have to get the word out.
Yeah, I'm feeling it's really important when you start your brand to have some strategy, to think about that strategy in the beginning, because I know there are so many other things to care about.
Right.
And sometimes you forget about the PR strategy. What is your opinion about this? How to develop the right PR strategy, or where the person should start from?
Great question, and I have to tell you that this is a very complex question just because every brand will be different. And I think PR strategy should not exist outside or by its own, but like it should not exist outside of your larger marketing plan. And again, you know, your brand is not what you think it is, it's what your consumers think it is, eventually, because they will be the ones
That's an amazing point, yeah.
Because like they will be the ones who will be spending their dollars, you know, in purchasing, whether it's a service or a product or an idea, right? So how, like, what are your ways to engage with your consumers? And I think this is the first question, like, who are your consumers? And then how to engage with them. And PR is a piece of a puzzle. There is a larger marketing picture that you always need to keep in mind, and you really need to keep your attention broader, because you cannot put all of your eggs in one basket and let's say, okay, I'm gonna put everything into social media. Well, you can, but you know what? There is a high chance that it's not going to work in silo. You really need to have social media, PR, digital marketing. Maybe there is some sampling component. Maybe there is
eggs in different baskets, right?
Exactly. You need to diversify, and then of course, you know, with time, as you give it a try and you explore different avenues, then you can sit down and say, like, okay, this is what's bringing me the most results. This is the strategy. Like, this is the tactic that's the most cost effective. How can I maybe find a way to merge them together? Like, what would that hybrid look like? So in this case, it's really about trying different things, seeing what works and what doesn't. And as an entrepreneur, you need to think quickly. Maybe you don't have enough budget to test something out for a year, but honestly, you don't have time because like things are happening quickly. So test it out as quickly as you can, get an idea of what's working for your brand. Like, it's important to get to know different things and to listen to different people, but at the end of the day, it's their brand, and even if your brand is kind of like following in their footsteps, it's not the same.
And
it's not the same. It may have different look and feel, it may have a different story, it may have so many different aspects around it, different price point, different consumer. So it's important to learn from the best and from your competitors, but it's also very important to realize what's working for you and what does not work for your brand. And once you figure it out, then you can double up and like put more energy and more resources into different things. But the first thing is to really think bigger and not just like silo disciplines, and just like really think cross-functionally.
Yeah, actually just like something came up to my mind. What recently have been very popular when some brands, they actually not only sold very good quality products, which is really important, but they also sold their ideas about something, about some values of their customers.
Right.
So for example, like in US, there is like diversity, like beauty brands go around beauty standards, they expand that, they think bigger, they think more inclusivity, yeah. They do find very interesting ways to promote their product, just using those type of thoughts and promoting that. Sometimes it actually works for the best, sometimes it doesn't work for the, because always you will find someone who like that or someone who doesn't like.
Right.
What do you think? Is it the right way, working on your PR strategy, to promote those ideas or to stand for something, or is better just to create the good quality product and just stay out of that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and like I feel like this is a great conversation point, because I mean, creating good quality product, I think it's the very baseline, because I mean, when it comes to beauty or fashion or any other consumer product, there are thousands, like if not millions of products out there. So, and every brand can say that this is a good quality product, right? Like you walk into a department store or you walk into a specialty beauty store and you see shelves filled with different brands, and every single one of them has quality product. But then what gets consumers' attention is not, I mean, it's not only the quality, but it's also the story behind the brand. Maybe there is a beautiful ingredient story. Maybe there is an interesting technology that they've never seen before. Maybe there is this inclusivity aspect that interests them. Maybe it's the sustainability. Maybe it's being gender inclusive, right, or gender neutral. So there are so many different areas that speak to different groups of people. And I feel like as a brand, you don't have to go after all of them, but you have to stay authentic as to who you are. So for example, for the brands that we carry on Room More Beauty, they're all natural. We have a lot of products with organic ingredients. So for us, being connected to nature has always been important, because it goes back to the roots, that goes back to how my family and many other families back home, how they've been sourcing their ingredients from the forest, from the fields, from their gardens. So that idea of being very close to nature and being like very close to your roots, right, to the original state of things, not like overproduced in factories, not like all of this crazy complicated materials and ingredients, but like really, the extracts, like botanicals, like the basics. So for us, that's been that moment of authenticity, because I mean, the most important part for the brand is not to force something because it's trending, because guess what? If you cannot back it up, like let's say something is trending, right? But as a brand, like you want to become a part of that conversation, you want to be trending. But then if it's not authentic to you, consumers will sense that.
They will feel it.
They will feel it. They will and then they will be like, oh, like this brand is just like trying to be something that they're not. Like how does it tie into their story? And it's good if your story is aligned with what's trending right now and what's hot, that's perfect. But if it's not, don't force it. It's better to have your own path and maybe start a new conversation that hasn't been overused or overspoken about, but what really feels what's right for your brand and for who you are as a founder.
Yeah, it's actually, McDonald's will always, people will love it no matter what. It doesn't need to pretend that it has like, I don't know, like some organic stuff in it, right? Or
yeah, and it's really about the brand. And of course, the example of McDonald's, like they started back in the days, and now the consumer is much more I don't want to say sophisticated, but I feel like consumers these days, they have many more options.
They do.
And
they come there, I feel like they come there for the feeling, for the story, for something different.
Exactly.
Not for because they can obviously buy so many other products, but they come there for something else. Maybe how they felt themselves when they've been kids.
Emotional, yes, exactly.
It's very emotional attachment.
Yeah, it's like bringing back the memories, the emotional connection, or maybe there is this ideal, right? Like, for example, when we think about nature, right? Like we have certain picture popping up in our minds, right? Like you would think, I don't know, mountains or forests or something. So how, as a brand, how can you bridge that gap between what's popping up in people's minds and then how is it reflected in your product? And sometimes, not like sometimes, but it's not enough to just say it. It's also, you need to prove it somehow, like whether it's your ingredients or maybe it's your packaging or maybe there is something else that goes into building of that brand.
Yeah, I'm actually, when I think about the rumor, I don't know, like the birch tree comes up. So in my head, I don't know why, but it's actually the strong image.
Right. Well, actually, like I mean, it's hard to tell, but the birch tree is incorporated in our logo. There is this little like etching between two letters. So
that's actually, yeah, that's true. That's smart. Wow, your designer did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Actually, I'm feeling that being entrepreneur and being the PR manager expert, it requires so much creativity and to build these forecasts, to test hypotheses. You need to be brave. You need to think about things in advance and to test them. What do you feel is important? What qualities are important for a PR manager to build this strategy, or for other brands or for your own business?
Yeah, I think it's always important for a PR professional to be curious. And I think it's also a quality that can translate really well into other areas of your life, not just your work as a PR professional. Because being curious, it makes you question things, it makes you inquire about things, and it makes you being more open to what else is out there in the world. So you're not just like having this closed tunnel vision. You're much more exposed to new things. You're willing to learn. You're willing to test things out, and that can lead to so many opportunities. It's also, you know, in PR, it's important to really go one step above, like to go an extra mile. So it's always thinking a step ahead. So like, let's say there is a story that came out in a magazine, and let's say your brand or your client, they have not been included. So what do you do? Like, how can you still make it a positive moment? How can you maybe start building a relationship with that writer, with that journalist who wrote this story? How can you get on their radar and then still introduce your brand? Like, of course, the story has been published and, like, you know, that's in the past, but then how can you leverage that as an opportunity for you to succeed next time, or for you to start a meaningful relationship? So it's really not just like thinking in the moment, but really thinking ahead, and then trying to think outside of the box and trying to see what does it mean to me? How can I leverage that? What's an opportunity? Because every situation, no matter how positive or how negative, has an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn something. It may be an opportunity to take action. It may be an opportunity to, I don't know, pave a new path. Like, who knows, right? Also, I mean, the work, as I said before, the work of entrepreneur seems very glamorous. And I feel like the same goes for the job of a publicist. I feel like when people think of people in PR, they think of them as, I don't know, like going from an event to an event, and
it's part of that,
like eating at fancy restaurants or whatever it may be. But yes, that's a part of it, as you said, and you're absolutely right. But there is also another side of it that requires long hours, that requires a lot of work, that requires a lot of negotiations. So it's, I mean, honestly, I didn't know that going into into this industry, but it's a pretty stressful job, and you really, like, you have to guard your own boundaries so that your work does not really interfere with your life and you can maintain some sort of a balance. But it's it's a very rewarding job at the same time. I mean, even like I spent so many years doing this, but every single time when I see my client or my brand being featured somewhere, oh, it just gives me so much joy. It gives me so much pleasure. And this is a
because
feeling.
you see from how this client came from the A to B,
right?
And you see this growth and this development, and I feel maybe not necessarily like actually working in a corporate world in a PR agency versus working on your own agency by your own. What is that difference? What do you experience?
Yeah, so I started my career on the agency side in PR specifically, and I liked it. It was very dynamic. I got a chance to work with a lot of wonderful brands, big and small. And I like the diversity of it because, you know, like you would handle a variety of different clients. Every client would have their own needs and their own tactics and strategies. Also, there was an opportunity to work with a lot of different team members because each team would be different and like different dynamics within the team. So it was a very nice flow. But I always felt like on the agency side, I'm not getting too close to the brand because A, you have too many clients to handle, but B, you, especially, you know, like as a more junior employee, you can only have access to a very limited, you know, information. So it wasn't like I could say like, okay, this is my brand. And although
very attached.
Yeah, and like, you know, I am usually the person who really attaches herself to a brand because I really love to give my 100% to whatever I do. But still, you know, being on the agency side, you're only getting a fraction of information. So when I went to work for corporate, you know, like when I went to Amore Pacific, we call it in-house. So when I went to work for the brand, for actually a few brands, I get much closer with the brands because, you know, I was working inside the company. I was in meetings with all types of departments, all types of different people who've been handling different pieces of the puzzle. So together we've been kind of making this puzzle complete, right?
So you felt like it's your own brand.
Oh, exactly. So obviously it wasn't my own, but it was very close to that.
That feeling.
Exactly, yeah. So now, since I have my own agency, like I really try to immerse myself into each of my clients' brands as much as I can. So I'm having conversations with the founders, just, you know, to understand more how, like, what was their
works.
Yes, how the business works, but like also how they started, you know, what motivated them, what inspired them, because I feel like it's so important because basically I am that person who tells their story for them, and if I don't know that, I will not be able to tell a very compelling story. So for me, it's very important to really understand where they're coming from. And like, you know, sometimes we get personal, we talk about our lives in general, which also contributes to that, right? It just helps me to get to know them more as people, not just the brand founders. And that contributes to the conversations that I'm having with media, with editors, with journalists.
Yeah, it's actually great when you have this connection and you could communicate close to the founder and he could really trust you to manage his own story actually also.
Yes.
Because sometimes brands that go around the product, sometimes we just spoke with Paulina, with the previous guest, that sometimes the brands that go around the story of the co-founder, and it's also lifestyle magazines. You could cover that from that point.
Yes, absolutely. And the founder story is so important because, you know, as like obviously when you have a large corporation that's been around for many years, maybe the story of the founder can fade, but we do have numerous examples in the beauty industry, like Jamie Kern-Lima, the founder of Cosmetics, or Jamie Schmidt, the founder of Schmidt Naturals. Like their founder story is still very much present, and you know, I mean, both of them have written wonderful books about their journey and their path to success. But and I do feel like now when I go to the store and I pick up the brand, like it all comes to me, right?
It's like storytelling, yeah. We just
exactly
how it's important, right?
Exactly, and like there is this connection because, you know, like if I didn't know much about Jamie and her story and how much she has accomplished on her way of getting to, you know, to that stage of her company and then selling it to one of the beauty giants and you know, consumer goods giants.
Yeah, so actually that's why you tell that you're working to bring to the brands more awareness. So when someone, so it's not necessarily someone read your article and he went by the link and he bought this product like right away. Maybe he heard something like in a podcast, right? And he didn't have this opportunity just to like stop running or like stop driving and to go and buy this product. But he will have this brand in mind when next time he needs something from this area.
Exactly.
When he thinks about going somewhere, like it will pop up in the mind. And this is actually maybe speaking about KPIs, right? It's not necessarily like you'll have lots of buyers like right away, but over the time, you will have these brands come up to customers' heads.
You're absolutely correct, and it's interesting. Like I don't remember the specific numbers, but there was a research done as to how many touch points a consumer needs to have with the brand in order to make a purchase. And I believe the number was somewhere between 10 and 20.
20? Wow.
10 and 20. So for example,
actually I've heard something much less, but it's it's more close to the truth actually.
Yeah, but maybe it also depends on the product. Maybe for some brands and products it will be less, but maybe for some it will be more.
But from 10 actually, yeah, it can be the range, right?
Exactly. So you know, that's what I was saying before. It's not really enough to be like in one publication. You have to be in many over the course of time. And then let's say people go on social media, they see your presence there. People listen to a podcast, they hear you there. Maybe there is, I mean, if a company has some advertising budget, they go into the subway and then they see subway ads. I don't know, like maybe there is an ad popping up in their Gmail box, right? So it's like all of these different touch points, and and then they go somewhere and then they get a sample of your product. Yeah. So it's like all of these touch points.
So that's it. I buy it. I give up.
And it all adds up. And yes, like a lot of people think like, oh, with PR we're gonna invest this much, and then how much we're gonna get in sales. Like I cannot tell you this.
It's to the sales people. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. This is absolutely outside of my control. And does PR contribute to sales? Absolutely.
And sometimes you just need to communicate that a lot of times to the client, because it's also you can educate the clients and it comes over the time. Not necessarily everyone's have to know that, right? Because they had a different expertise. They just don't know.
Exactly.
And this is you need just to tell. Yeah. That this is how it works.
Exactly, 100%. Because you know people think like, okay, we're gonna start doing PR, and then the moment the story comes out, we're gonna start like hearing this like catching sound. And it's oftentimes it's not the case. Like yes, I'm not excluding the fact that if your brand is featured somewhere, that you will get some traction, you will get more traffic to your site, some of it may convert into sales, but there is absolutely no way to say that this article has brought me or will bring me, let's say, 100 sales. It may happen, but it may not. So it really depends. It depends on a variety of different factors. It depends what outlet is that, what type of a product is that. Was it the right outlet for your specific brand? Because everyone wants to be on the cover of Vogue. Trust me, I work with so many clients, and it's like, oh, like we really want to be in Vogue, and like, okay, that's great. But
your customers maybe are not there.
They may not be in Vogue. They may be in I don't know, Good Housekeeping. Or they may not even
yoga
be reading.
magazine. Yeah.
Exactly. They may not even be reading magazines at all. Maybe they're sitting on social media and scrolling through the reels or like watching TikToks. So and this is what brings me back to the point that I made before. It's like really understand who is your customer and how do they consume information. Because I mean, I can probably get you into Vogue, but will it make a difference? I mean, it will massage your ego, yes, but will it make a difference for your company? That's you know, that's a question.
Yeah. Did you experience, were there any pitfalls during your PR career? I understand that could be not, maybe. There have been something.
Yeah, well, it was very eye-opening for me when I started my career in PR that there is actually a lot of work. And yes, there is this part of fancy part, like you see the placement in a magazine, and like you pick up the magazine from the stand and then you flip it open and there is a product right there of your client front and center, and that's great. But how much work goes into that, and how many things can go wrong, or how many things can go off track, there is a very, it's a long conversation, because there are so many moving pieces. Let's say, like when you're planning an event for a client, you have to secure the venue, you have to hire, I don't know, someone to help you with, I don't know, with music. You have to have a florist, you have to have food and beverage, you have to have some sort of a program, right? Like what kind of information are you sharing with your attendees? You need to have decorations that are on brand. So there are so many moving parts, and to put an event together and to make sure that everyone is prepared, everyone on the same page, that's a lot of work. But like even getting a tiny placement in a small newspaper, like in a small magazine, that's a lot of work too. So, it's like that's something that I didn't anticipate. But, I feel like hard work is not necessarily a bad thing. I feel like, many people may be a bit like hesitant, like, oh my God, like I don't want to work 24/7. But it's a very rewarding job. Like, yes, you will sacrifice your time, but it's very rewarding, and then you see the results and you see something tangible, but like also you learn so much, because I feel like lots of skills that you can learn as a PR professional, they're very transferable into many other areas of your life, and a career in PR can prepare you for, if not everything, but for a lot of things.
That sounds promising. Actually, you taught your course on PR and communications and Baruch College. So what are the highlights of your course to young PR managers, to those who start?
Yeah, so the course was part of the program for international students who would be coming to the US to pursue their degree in international business. Okay. So PR was a piece of the puzzle. So like it was, I believe, a year and a half or a 2-year program that they were a part of, and then they've been taking different courses. Yeah, no, it was a great resource for them, to get to experience the American education, and then also get acclimated into the business world here in the US. So they took various courses, everything from social media to marketing to business to legal to PR. And what I wanted to accomplish through this course was to really give students hands-on practical skills, because as we talked before, traditional education, it's amazing. It prepares you to be ready to work for whatever the grown-up life throws at you, but sometimes it's lacking more hands-on and practical skills. But the world of PR and social media, it's very similar. It's shifting literally by the minute. So let's say if I were to write a book on PR today, in a year it will be obsolete or very close to be obsolete. So my course did not have any textbooks. So I've been just preparing some materials for my students to read through. There would be some relevant newsletters from industry thought leaders. There would be some articles from trade publications. There would be some content that I would find, out there that would be fresh and relevant and would actually prepare them for what the current state of things is and how to operate in that environment. So and it was very practical. So for example, one of the things that I did, I knew that, it's great to hear from me because I could share my experience, but it would be even more helpful to hear from someone who is actually doing the job of a journalist and hear their perspective. So I taught for 3 or 4 semesters, and then every semester,
fascinating.
I loved it. I always wanted to teach. Like even as a child, like I had my stuffed animals sitting in rows, and I've been teaching them. So that was one of the childhood dreams coming true in real life. And I would bring editors at top publications. Like for example, we had an editor at Pure Wow, we had an editor from Allure, we had an editorial director on Today.com, which is the digital piece of the Today Show. So, and then they would spend about an hour, 2 hours of their time really sharing their experience, what they see from their side, because, publicists see one side of the story, but then journalists and editors, they see a different side of the story and they have their own mindset and their own approach to doing business. So I felt it was very important for them to hear firsthand what it's like to be a journalist, what are the challenges that they're facing.
What they're expecting from PR managers.
Exactly. Like what makes a good pitch? What makes a pitch stand out? Because they are receiving thousands of pitches every single day.
Especially in the US.
Absolutely, yes. They are bombarded with...
Everyone wants to be published here.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And they are receiving so much mail, and they're receiving, they're flipping through so much content. So how from like thousands of emails, how can yours stand out? And also different people may have different answers, right? Like let's say the editor at Allure will be looking for certain things, but the editor at the Today Show will be looking for a very different set of things.
What have you been looking for?
And that's a conversation for another episode.
That's true. I'm sure it's a big topic, yeah.
Yeah, so I really wanted to make it practical. I wanted to be very interactional and engaging. So for one of the classes, we had an editor from Shape magazine, and she we actually practiced writing a pitch in real time. So everyone wrote a pitch, and then we submitted them to her in real time. And then she would be just like going and saying like, okay, like I would make this differently, or like this is how I would say it, or like I would not pay attention to this because X, Y, and Z, or like this pitch is great because X, Y, and Z. So
I wish I had the same PR course when I was studying in PR. It's like just case by case, and you just brought many practical advices to them, and you just really put hands on that.
Yeah, because I wanted to have, I wanted for my students to really not just like learn from the books, but really come out of that course or like graduate from the program. And if PR would be their career of choice, then they would have the tools to start. And obviously every PR, like whenever you join an agency or you join the company in a PR role, you'll get to learn a lot of things, because there are very different ways people may be doing things, and like maybe different ways of how they like their pitches to be written, and you know how they do press releases and whatnot. But to have the basics at least, like that's already something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually interesting. I recently have been read about the holistic capitalism, holistic this and that.
Mm-hmm.
If we speak about holistic PR, what it will be about?
Interesting question. I think, you know, traditionally and now, like I feel like lots of people still think of PR as just media placements, right? So it's like, okay, you write a pitch, or like you write a press release, and then you go and like you pitch it out, and that's it. But now there are so many different areas of PR, and it's really important to tap into many of them. So for example, it's like hosting events, sending product mailers, sampling your product, working with influencers, exploring some non-traditional way, like non-traditional publications like podcasts or maybe newsletters, or you know, like other ways, and doing like partnerships, like all of the things that we talked about. And I feel like really looking at PR not just like as a machine for securing placements, but really raising that awareness on a larger, like a larger scheme of things, because all of these little elements that you think of as little elements, then they all come together. And that's how, you know, people have more touch points with your brand, and then that's how people actually get to recognize the brand.
What would be your advice to the person who would love to start a career in a PR, and maybe to be the same specialist as you are in a PR? What would be that piece of advice?
Oh, lots of advice. But I think the most important part is don't be afraid to roll up your sleeves and just like get down to work. Because yes, like you may have watched like Devil Wears Prada, and you know, like the glamorous side, like you've seen the glamorous side. But then, you know, sometimes I pack boxes, sometimes I go to meet editors-in-chief. So it varies day to day, and it's a very different environment every single day. And this is something that I really like about PR, that every day brings you something new, whether it's new connections or new opportunities, or you know, like just like a new way of thinking, like new ideas. So I think another piece of advice would be just be open to new ideas, be open to new connections. You never know where a new connection may lead you or what it may bring. And it, again, doesn't have to be immediate. So, you know, maybe it's like something down the road, but it's really important to establish your network. So networking, becoming a people person if you are not already. So, you know, that's very important. Yeah, and as I said before, I think it's like being curious, being hardworking. Time management helps because, especially if you're working on the agency side, but like even if you're working in-house, you get to balance so many things. And it's very important to be uber organized and really have everything like written down so things don't fall through the cracks, being on time in your responses, follow up, being diligent about that. So I would say this will be the core things. But like also, you know, be creative, like get out there, like don't just like get stuck in one place. Go out there and meet new people, explore new places, and you don't need to travel far, you know, you can all find it like around you, and just see what's happening in the world, because like visiting a store that may be even like unrelated, like let's say there is a new beautiful store that opened up, so going there and like seeing their design, seeing their branding, that may spark a thought. I don't know what kind of thought it may be, but
maybe something you can meet someone.
Exactly.
And to make collaboration.
Exactly.
Find a client.
Yeah, or it could be even something even more subtle. Maybe it's just getting an idea of how to decorate for your next event, or like thinking about some collateral card that you move. I mean, there are so many things. So, you know, just like keep your eyes and ears open, open your heart to the world, open your mind to the world, and just do the work, and then the reward will come.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I will jump to a little bit to immigration part, because I think it's so interesting, because you're an immigrant yourself, you came here, you didn't have any connections, so you actually built yourself, you're self-made. Well, is there something you will do differently, or when you came, or you will do the same? Could you share about that period of your life?
Yeah.
Just coming back and maybe just remember still those feelings.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, in my case, as I mentioned, that was my first trip abroad to New York. So I landed.
Like, was the first one?
Yes, okay. Yes, I've never been abroad before, so that was my first trip. And like, imagine like being a transplant from a city of Barnaul in Siberia into the heart of New York. So that was quite a change for me. And you know, I didn't know how things are here, and I've been questioning myself a lot. So I feel like I didn't have a lot of confidence when I first came. So as time went by and I've been gaining some expertise, I started to feel a bit more empowered and do bigger steps and like bolder steps and really aiming higher. But at the beginning, I didn't know. So I feel like if I could go back, I would probably be more confident in myself, and just not being afraid to ask for more or to go bigger, like really thinking like, okay, you know, like, yes, I'm new here, but so what?
So land of opportunity.
Exactly. So not being too concentrated on, you know, like on the accent or like on your background or like other things, and just like really pushing forward. But I feel, you know, it's like I think I'm in a good place. I wouldn't say that I regret certain things, but I feel like, you know, as a young person who just found herself in the heart of New York City, which is one of the most cosmopolitan and the biggest cities in the world,
craziest, and the best one.
Yes,
at the same time.
Exactly. I would just probably give myself a tad more confidence.
Well, why did you decide to move here?
Good question. So when I was in school back home, I studied English. So and you know, as part of those studies, we got to learn a lot about English-speaking countries, the UK, the US, well, mostly the UK and the US. And back then there was no internet. That was 2007. Well, there was internet, but it was, you know, very limited, like especially where I was from. It was, yeah, people relied on books, on the libraries, like there was no social media. So it was a very different time.
No smartphones.
Yeah, they just started. They just started, but you know, like it wasn't like what we have today. And yeah, someone asked me this question before, like, oh, how did you choose New York? Why wasn't it San Francisco? Why wasn't it something else? I'm like, I honestly don't know. It's like, I knew there was a Statue of Liberty. I knew there was Times Square. Like, I knew about it from the books, from, you know, from my teachers. But I didn't have any first-hand experience. I didn't have an opportunity to explore different cities before then. And then I landed in New York, and I liked it. And I'm like, you know what?
Fell in love.
I fell in love. I'll give it a shot. Let's see how things go. And here we are, 15 years later.
Wow, that's awesome. So, what's your favorite books or something?
Lots of books. I used to be an avid reader. Every day I would be commuting on the subway or on the train to work. I would have a book in my bag, and then on my way back I would also flip it open, and like, I love reading. So lots of favorite books. But for people who are thinking of exploring the PR profession or who may be curious about it, I recommend 2 books. One is called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He used to be, I don't know if you know about this book, but Chris Voss used to be an FBI negotiator. And he has very useful tips and tricks that he compiled into this
Yeah, I
book.
think I've heard about this one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's been great. I actually, like, once I read the book, I also took his course through masterclass virtually. And I've been using some of the negotiation tactics. That was before COVID, so it was a few years back, and they actually worked. So
Okay.
I was able to save a lot of money just using those tactics, and also, you know, kind of like win the situation. So it's helpful. And then another book, well, actually there are 2. One is called Everybody Writes, and then Content Rules. They're written by the same person. Her name is Anne Handley.
Okay.
And she's a marketer. She's a marketer, and her books, they give very practical and very smart advice as to how people should approach marketing. And I think there is a lot to do with holistic approach, as we talked about. So it's just like really thinking about it from a larger picture perspective. She also has a weekly, actually bi-weekly newsletter. It's some, I forgot the name of it, but if you Google Anne Handley, it will probably pop up. It's a great newsletter. She shares some personal stories, but then she ties them into the larger marketing conversation, and it's just phenomenal. So I would say this would be my top picks.
Okay, thank you so much. So we'll put some books later.
Yeah.
And what does mean success for you? How you define it for yourself?
That's a loaded question. So I think success is really, I mean, we all start at different points in life, right? Like, so I used to run marathons before, and when I think of that, I started running marathons like only, 5-6 years ago, and I had 0 experience with running or athletics or sports until then. And there were people who would be running since they were kids, or like who had family members who would encourage them to run, or, you know, they would be just like running in their families. And I could not compare myself to these people. So for me, success would be to cross the finish line of the marathon, while for someone it would be to finish in like under 3 hours, or like in 2:30, like something. But for me, because I started at a very different point, so for me, success would mean a totally different thing. So now whenever I think of success, whether it's in sports or in life or in your career, or I mean, whatever, education, whatever it may be, it's really about showing that you can do it, and you can really put 100% of yourself into that. Outcome is secondary, because if you're honest with yourself that you've never had experience with this before, and then you started something, and you poured your heart and your soul into it, and it resulted in something, it may not be Nobel Prize worthy, it may not be Guinness record, but for you, it's the best that you can do. And that's what success is.
Wow, I love it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that we had such an amazing chat with you, some conversation, and I'm really wishing you a lot of success with your projects with Room of Beauty. Yeah, that you maintain this beauty Russian thing, and Hillcrest Communications, which is growing and Yeah, you started your agency like recently, and I'm sure it's a long way. Maybe you will end up with a third business later.
Who
and
knows?
we'll meet with you later and speak about that.
Never say never. Who knows?
Yeah.
Daria, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a joy and pleasure to speak with you. And if our viewers and followers have any follow-up questions, please, you can leave my contact information,
Yeah,
and I'll
actually,
be more than happy to.
how is what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like
So Instagram is great, LinkedIn is great as well, or an email. So I'm very open and I like making new friends. So everyone's welcome. Awesome. Yes.
Yeah, to my videos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. See you next week. And if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, like this video, and see you soon. Thank you.